Good. Fine. So today is 15th lecture of our course EN 640, and yes. So we are discussing the control of induction motor drive, and particularly for the V by F control, because lot of things are in common with vector control or any other closed loop control method. If we know these basics correctly, then we can probably have a much better performing motor drive even with the closed loop control. So eventually we will migrate towards that, we will move towards that, but let us just have a quick recap of what we have done in the last class. So we are trying to now have a more fast switching devices in our system. So which is why our interval over which we are switching is kind of reducing. So the TSW, this is kind of few microsecond or something. So we have devices which can switch much faster, and which is where we are trying to realize the different voltage levels in a sine wave. So which is how we can realize any sinusoidal voltage waveform in a stepped manner. So that actually would be a stepped sine wave, but I mean on an average, but it will be close to what we are intending to generate. So this is what we have seen, some relationship between the Vref component and the gate emitter voltage, and then how it is related to the average pole voltage. So what we have found that in general, our pole voltage or average pole voltage value is that function times of VDC by 2. So if that function of theta, which means the modulating signal is m sine omega t, then we will get a sinusoidal VRO on an average. But here the condition is that our switching frequency, which means the number of samples within a sinusoidal cycle, should be very high, at least 21 samples for good realization of the sine wave. Now we have seen that for doing so, the ramp type of carrier is not good, and it gives rise to some multiple switchings at a particular instant. So which is why we need to go for a triangular carrier where we have one switching at a time, which is a good PWM or a good way to have the realization of any PWM. So the system is more reliable. We are having only one switching at any instant. There is no overlap. Now then we have seen some more properties for this PWM, which we are calling as sine triangle PWM. And there are three sinusoidal modulating signals for three-phase system, and those are all in balanced three-phase manner. And we have switching frequency. So we are trying to understand what is a good PWM. How do you judge by looking at the pole voltage waveform that what you have generated is actually a good PWM waveform. So some checkpoints I have given over here, let's say at the zero crossing of the waveform or near the peak, positive peak, near the negative peak. So we have different widths for these positive and negative pulses. So which is how we can judge whether the waveform is good or not. Then further, if you see the harmonic analysis, so what we are finding that these pulse widths are basically changing from 0 to maximum and then to 0 and then to minimum and then to 0. So which means there are two types of frequencies getting involved in this system. One is the switching frequency FSW, and second is your sinusoidal frequency over which the pulse width is varying. So then we have the harmonic analysis, and what we find that there is a sharp fundamental component. When I say sharp, means anything near is very close to 0. So in the neighborhood, there is nothing, no harmonic in the neighborhood of this fundamental component. But after a long gap, at the switching frequency, we have a component, we may have a component at FSW and then the sidebands, and similarly at 2 FSW, 3 FSW, and so on. So this goes on, and if by chance this particular component is becoming a common mode, it will get cancelled. So then we have seen how we can maintain the symmetries in the waveform for sine triangle PWM. So basically 4 symmetries: full wave symmetry, half wave symmetry, quarter wave symmetry, and 3-phase symmetry. So how do we maintain? So different cases we have seen, and ultimately what we have figured out that for sine triangle PWM, if we wish to maintain all the symmetries, our pulse number must be an odd triplet number. So 3, 9, 15, 21, all these are good numbers. And then corresponding switching frequency. If we have fundamental frequency of 50 Hertz, then FSW would be like some 150 Hertz or 450 Hertz or 750 Hertz and so on. It will keep on going further. So some examples we saw where we have one modulating signal and the carrier and how the pole voltage is generated. So this is how the width is changing throughout the waveform. And then we have a fixed switching cycle that we can say. Now when there are three modulating signals and we maintain P equal to 9, so I have taken 9 pulse number for clarity over here. So here we can see at the zero crossing, this is the zero line, we see that the carrier is having zero crossing with every modulating signal. So it is crossing here also, here. So everywhere the carrier is having zero crossing with all the modulating signals, which means for all the modulating signals, we have kind of same carrier, which is not different in any manner. But if let us say you do not maintain the odd triplet number, let's say you take P equal to 7, then this is how it may look like. Let's say you have made the carrier in line with the MR. So now zero crossing with MR is maintained because of course it's an integer, an odd integer. So for MR, two symmetries are maintained, full wave symmetry, half wave symmetry. But let us say if you start seeing over here, any other waveform, it's not cutting, the zero crossings are not matching. It may match by chance, but it's not matching anywhere. You see there is some gap. So this is where we lose something. So we may lose quarter wave symmetry, we may lose the three-phase symmetry among the waveforms. So of course, when the carrier is not same for all three, the PWM waveform will not be shifted by 120 degree from each other. So then we may lose this three-phase symmetry and we may lose quarter wave symmetry for Y and B phases because it's not aligned properly. So these are the problems when we have non-odd triplet number. So that's why for a good PWM, we should practice this. Now we have understood how we make the sine triangle PWM look good and what are the ways with which we can judge whether the PWM waveform is good or not. Now today we are going to have some analysis for the sine triangle PWM. So let's say we do the current, ripple or harmonic analysis. Of course, any PWM you have, if let's say you want to quickly compare the performance, you must have some performance metric. That's what we have seen for the low switching frequency case. And there, because we have the fundamental and then we have the fifth, so 5F or 7F, let's say Fs. So 5Fs, 7Fs, 11Fs, these are the components which are available in the line-to-line voltage or line-to-neutral voltage. Now, each of these components, in case of low pulse number application, each of these numbers are very, very dominant. So we need to know what is happening at this particular harmonic level. So then we saw that Fourier series expansion could be a very good tool to analyze what these components are. So we can get VRN and let's say H particular harmonic, and then we know what is IRH. So this is how we can have all different voltage and current harmonic components, and then we can do either ITHD or weighted THD of voltage, and we can know about the quality of the waveform. So here, when we are talking about sine triangle PWM, and we have so many switchings in a particular pole voltage, we may have like typically some 50 or 100, something like this, lot of switchings could be there. Then it becomes difficult to have the same method, let's say Fourier series expansion for these kind of waveforms, because everywhere you need to know the switching angle and then you need to take the average value AN, BN and all that. So that becomes very, very difficult, and it may be erroneous also. So some error might be associated with that because we have two frequencies getting interacted. So then we may go for some more little advanced methods, let's say double Fourier series, and so on. Here we may get more accurate results. So this is one way we can analyze. Now the issue is these components, we have seen the harmonic spectrum, how it looks like. So these components generally appear much far from the, or very far from the fundamental component. So there will be huge gap, and then there is some FSW and the side bands, and similarly then 2 FSW and the side bands. So and so on. So there is a lot of gap coming in between. So what happens, because we know that our system ultimately, when we do the harmonic analysis or harmonic modeling, whether it is induction motor or any other motor or even grid connected system, ultimately it comes down to what is the leakage inductance or what is the inductance between the fundamental EMF, which is grid, or our back EMF, so, and our PWM, that means the inverter output. So ultimately this inductor comes in between. So then for this inductor, because high frequency components are very well filtered, so individual component may not be very important, but their collective value could be high. So let's say you may have IFSW, then there is some IFSW sideband, let's say S1, IFSW S2, and so on. Lot of frequencies are there. Then you have similarly I2FSW, and then you have I2FSW, S1, S2, and so on. All these bands are there. Individually, these may not have very big impact, but because these are coming in big numbers, so the collective value could be high. Now, the representation for all this collective value, let's say you sum all these harmonics which are there, so that is actually what ripple we are getting on the current waveform or any waveform. So for current, this is basically sum of all the harmonics from 1 to infinity. Now, for sine triangle PWM or any high switching frequency PWM, the quantity to be analyzed is the current ripple. So this is our performance metric. So we look for what is the peak to peak current ripple or anything which is related to this. So let us see how do we compute or how do we analyze this peak to peak current ripple. So what we have seen that even in case of induction motor also, the finally per phase equivalent system can be shown as this. And here is your total leakage coming in there. Now, all these components, let us say Vi or I, these components have some fundamental and some harmonic components. So let's say Vi, I write as VRN, which is generated by our converter, and this can be written as VRN1, which is the fundamental, and VRN ripple, whatever is the ripple associated with this PWM voltage waveform. This will be the separation from in the fundamental and the harmonic components for the VRN. Similarly, we can have separation or we can segregate out the fundamental and harmonic components, or let's say don't write any subscript. So we put this tilde. So that represents all the ripple. So we have some fundamental components. So how the current may look like. This is our current. So then the harmonic will be sitting on this, the ripple would be sitting on this. So fundamental component will be impressed somehow within this harmonic band, this peak to peak ripple. So this is how we can represent, we can separate out what is the fundamental and what is the harmonic. And for back EMF, generally the machines are very well built. There are not much harmonics generated in the back EMF, and even in the grid we do not face lot of harmonics. So what we assume that this has only fundamental component EB1. There is no harmonic component associated with the back EMF. So then our analysis has to be restricted between the two components. So we can separate out, if let's say fundamental we want to solve, so we can do VRN1 like what we have done earlier with the back EMF EB. Whereas for harmonic, we have only the ripple part. So VRN ripple, then the leakage or any inductance what is there in between, and that's all. Other side there is no EMF to do that. Then in this case the current ripple can be written as, so here we do not write this V by J omega L because this is not for individual component. Now we are having the AC quantity, sum of all the ripple. So basically we need to go for more generic equation, which is L di by dt is equal to V. So something like this, V equal to L di by dt. So this is what we need to solve for the ripple. So for the ripple component, we can write this as VRN dt. This would be our current ripple, and we do analysis at switching frequency or switching time period. So need not go for full fundamental level because it is a ripple. So ultimately for every switching cycle, wherever it starts, let's say it starts from here, then it is going to come back to this point. This is what is the meaning of ripple. If it is changing its value, then it means this is not ripple. This is some kind of your average value in the current. So that is why there is no constant term added over here. So at 0, the value of ripple is 0. And at TSW, again this is going to be 0. But in between there will be some changes on the ripple value. Now how do we analyze this for sine triangle PWM? This is what we are going to see over here. So we need to know what voltage we are applying and how to translate that to the actual voltage which is useful for analysis, and then we can do. So we know few things what we have already discussed, that MR, MY, MB, these are balanced three-phase modulating signals. So analysis we are doing for a three-phase system only. And we have MB. Now, we also know that our carrier frequency or switching frequency is much greater than our fundamental frequency. So which means for one switching cycle, MR, MY, MB will not change significantly. These will be almost a constant line for one switching cycle. Very insignificant change in the values of these modulating signals. So this is the basis of our analysis. We are assuming these voltages to be constant for one switching time period. Now, and that is how we are realizing also. So that is justified. Now let's say if I have to quickly draw the switching cycle, I'm using a scale so that it's little bit better to read and analyze. So this is our, let's say, the zero axis, because we are dealing with the bipolar quantities. So we have zero axis, and then let's say here is our the positive limit, and then we have our negative limit. Now we can do our analysis on half switching cycle, because we have seen that we are using triangular wave. So then that is going to be symmetric for both the halves. So that's why doing analysis for even half switching cycle is sufficient to understand what is happening with the system. So let's say little inaccuracy is there, but please bear with that. Let's say this is the half carrier wave triangular. So it will be like this on this side and like this going on this side. Here is 0. Here is TSW by 2. This is our 0 axis, +1 and -1 limit. So our carrier signal is varying between -1 to +1. Now for this balanced three-phase system, MR, MY, MB, so we need to have values which add up to 0, because we are not having anything additional in this system, any other common mode or something. So these three modulating signals must add up to 0. So let's say if I take MR value equal to some 0.2, MY value equal to some 0.4, so MB is naturally going to be -0.6. These are some example values. We can have anything similar to this. So let's say here is our MR, then we have MB, and then we have our MY, and then we have our MB. Something like this. So now these values we demarcate because this is important for analysis. This is 0.6, then this is 0.2, and then this is 0.4. So this is our MY, MR and MB. So for one switching cycle, it does not change much. Only at every switching cycle, we see some change on the value of these modulating signals after a switching cycle. So that's why this analysis we can do. Now, what we need to do, we need to come up with the expression for VRN, or at least what VRN is, that we need to know. Then only we can go and see what VRN ripple is. So VRN, we know it can be given in terms of pole voltages as 1/3 of 2 VRO minus VYO minus VBO. This is what we have seen. So the same thing we will try to do, what we have done for the 2 level. So let me zoom out little bit so that it's easier to do. Okay, so let me draw the axis again. And we need to demarcate the intervals. Now, see, we are doing comparison between the modulating signal and the carrier. So we need to know where our pole voltage is changing its polarity. So let's say this is one interval where it is changing. This is corresponding to our MB. This is first instant where one switching is happening. Then the next instant is here where our MR is getting compared with the triangular carrier. And then we have MY. Now we can quickly draw the pole voltages for these modulating signals. So let us say yes. Now these are the intervals. Now let me quickly draw the horizontal axis also. So these are the ways how to slow down the class. Otherwise, it becomes difficult to absorb also for you. So I'm making it little bit easier for all of you. So what we are trying to do, we are trying to draw the pole voltages corresponding to the three phases, and then we can figure out what is VRN. Now we are ready. So this, let's say, first one is our VRO. Then we have VYO and VBO. So we will see that. Now what we have, that VRO is switching at this second instant. So we have plus VDC by 2 because the modulating signal is higher than our carrier up to this point, and then it is switching to minus VDC by 2. This is at one switching level we are doing. So it will, or rather half switching interval. So it will continue. Now we have the Vy, which is changing at the last. So it is having the highest value. So let's say Vyu. So we will have something like this. So it is plus VDC by 2 and then minus VDC by 2. And then we have VBO, which is having actually a negative value. So this is changing somewhere here. Like that. Now we can write, or we can draw actually our VRN on basis of these pole voltages. So let me draw it over here. Now we can compute for different intervals what exactly we are having. Let's say for the first interval, which is somewhere up to this point, and then we have up to this point, and then we have up to this point. So we can compute for these intervals. Let us say we give some name, let's say T1, and then this is T2, and then this is T3 instant, and then this is TSW by 4. So this is how we are having. So now what is there, if we see again, we just for reference, I will write down the expression for VRN over here to VRO minus VYO minus VBO. So if you see, when all three are positive, let's say this is also positive, this is also positive, and this is also positive. When all three are positive, the sum will be 0. Like the net resultant for VRN would be 0. So let me draw VRN with red color. So this will be like this here. Now the next instant what we are having, the R is positive, Y is positive. By positive I mean connected to plus VDC by 2, connected to the positive DC bus. But the VBO is negative. So here what case we have, that R and Y are positive and B is negative. So this, you can see that VYO and VBO are getting added over here somewhat. So whenever they have opposite polarity, they will simply cancel out. So whatever is remaining, this VRO, that will dictate the value of this VRN. So this is nothing but 2 into VDC by 2 into 1 by 3. So that becomes VDC by 3. So we have some value like, up to this we have VDC by 3. This is VRN we are writing. Now again, for the next state what we have, the R has gone negative, Y is positive and B is negative. So because again Y and B are of opposite polarity, so this alone, the R alone will tell the value. So plus VDC by 3, and then that will be, okay, sorry, I think there is, just let me check quickly. Yes, fine, that is true. So we are having minus VDC by 2 value and Y and B having opposite polarities. Those will cancel out and then ultimately it will be minus VDC by 3. So let's say somewhere here. And then again, because all three are negative, R, Y, B, all three are negative. So again, the sum will come back to 0. So this is how our VRN will look like. Now, what about VRN ripple? So we know that VRN ripple is nothing but VRN minus VRN1. If we remove the fundamental component, so this is what the ripple it has. Now we need to understand what exactly this ripple is. So let's say we are trying to realize a voltage level on the sine wave. Let's say we have this sine wave. And let's say we are trying to realize this voltage level at this point, at that switching instant. So what we are doing, this is some value of voltage, some 100 volts, 200 volts, whatever it is. Now, this we are trying to realize through our PWM waveform. Now, for realizing this voltage, what we are doing, we are applying VDC by 2, positive for some time, and then we are applying negative for some time over this switching cycle, let us say up to here. Now you understand what exactly is happening. We have the VRN1 value over here, whereas what we are actually applying is this. First this and then this, which means there is some type of error between what we are trying to realize and what we are having actually in the system. We need VRN1, this average value over here. Let me draw with some green color. So we are trying to have this, but actually we are applying this VRN, which is a pole voltage, which means either having value plus VDC by 2 or minus VDC by 2 or whatever value. Here, this I am drawing for simplicity. So the remaining voltage, what is applied as extra on the system, that is called voltage error. We are applying something different from what we actually need. So then that voltage creates this ripple. This is what is the ripple part, the error in the voltage, what we are applying. So I hope this is clear. The ripple is nothing but our voltage error, what we are creating in the system because of our PWM operation compared to what we actually need in the system. We need to apply VRN1, but we are applying VRN. And this is where we are creating the error. This is actually the ripple. So now we can figure out what is our ripple from this particular waveform. So let me draw the vertical axis once again. Okay. Fine. So then here we have our axis for VRN ripple. Now what is our VRN value? What are we trying to realize? Any answers? Any answers what we are trying to realize? What is VRN? Any guess? Anybody? So we know that our VRN or the average value of VRO is actually what? VDC by 2 times of MR. That we know, right? You can unmute yourself. This is little bit involved activity, so I want all of you to speak little bit. This is true, right? VRO is related to MR like this, the average value of VRO. Someone? Okay, shall I stop here then if no response? Anybody? Okay, there are 19 people. Why nobody is responding? Yes, Pooja?
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
let me. Yeah, Gopal, Narendra, Naveen.
Yes, sir.
What is yes? Yes for what? So this I want to have little answers from your side. I want some response from your side. Please. Pranjal, Rajesh, Samir, Satyaprakash, Spandan, Suraj, Vijeta, Vikas, Vishal, anybody? See, this is what our VRO is. That's what we have seen so far. VRO average is nothing but VDC by 2 times of VR. And this VRO is actually same as VRN average. This VRO average and VRN average are same. Are we clear at this point?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Huh? So then the VRN1, what we are trying to realize over here is what? VDC by 2 into? Say, anybody? Is it true? Hmm? So this is what VRN1 we are trying to realize. So when I take example, that is actually indicative of all the information what we need for this analysis. Correct, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now, where is our VRN this one value? So we have plus VDC by 3 and minus VDC by 3. Two levels are here. So somewhere this is 1/3 almost if we take. So let's say 0.3 times of VDC this is, and this is also minus 0.3 times of VDC. Is that correct? So our average value is somewhere here. This is our VRN1. Am I clear?
Yes, sir.
This is
Yes,
0.1
sir.
VDC. Now what is the ripple? Ripple is nothing but the actual voltage minus the required voltage. So then what we will get? Our VRN ripple for this particular case, which is T1, let's say this interval, T2, and then T3. So what we are getting is actually ripple. So this is 0. 0 minus this 0.1 is minus 0.1 VDC. This is our ripple in the first interval, minus 0.1 VDC. Then the second interval we have more voltage than required, 0.3 VDC minus 0.1. So this becomes positive. The error becomes positive. How much? Plus 0.2. Then again, we have some negative voltage applied wherever what we need is actually a positive number. So the error is more negative because minus 0.3 minus 0.1, that becomes minus 0.4. And then again we have 0, whereas we need 0.1 VDC. So what is the error?
Minus 0.1 VDC.
Yes. So somewhere at the same level. Now you are seeing how the volt second balance is coming up over here. This is a smaller positive voltage 0.2 but applied for a very long duration. Whereas these negative voltages are applied over a smaller interval. So ultimately the positive and negative voltages are balancing out for the ripple and that's why the IRN final and initial both values are 0. IRN 0 and IRN TSW or even TSW by 2, these two values are 0 at the end of the half of the subcycle. This is TSW by 2. Only one part of the carrier we have taken. Now we know that current ripple is nothing but integration of the voltage ripple. Is it correct? This is what it is. Over the interval, whatever comes over there. The initial value is 0. So, let me draw in this. Now, our current ripple will start from this point, correct? And this VRN error or VRN ripple for this interval, let's say 0 to T1, is actually minus 0.1 VDC. So what will be the final value? Let's say I1. Somebody?
Negative ramp.
Is this correct?
Yes,
Let's
sir.
say this duration is T1, this duration is T2, this duration is T3, and this duration is T4. Is this correct? So it
Yes,
Yes, sir.
will
Yes, sir.
come down. So it will come down to and this would be a line. Pardon my drawing inaccuracies, but this would be a straight line because here we have only inductor which is coming across the voltage and very short interval. So which is what we have discussed during the assignment discussion. So this would almost be a line and coming down to a negative value. Correct? This is the value of I1 from 0. Now the next interval, what average or what error we have, that is positive error plus 2 VDC, which means our current for the next interval is going to be whatever is I1, that will be the starting point plus 1 by L times of 0.2 VDC times of T2. Is this correct?
Yes.
So it is going to reach
Yes,
some
sir.
high value, let's say here. This is your I2 value. Now for the next interval, what is I3?
Minus 0.2 VDC.
So this will be I2 plus minus point. No, this is not minus 0.2. This should be minus 0.4. So 0.1
Yes.
is subtracted from minus 0.3. So it should be minus 0.4. So now this is minus 0.4 VDC times of T3, isn't it? So it will come down to some value. The slopes will be different. Now this slope, if let us say you say is 1, this will be 2, this will be 4. Getting my point? Why? This is 0.1 VDC, this is 0.2 VDC, this is 0.4 VDC. So this slope is directly proportional to what VDC is coming over there. L is constant everywhere. Understanding my point?
Yes, sir.
So when you
Yes,
are
sir.
drawing in
Yes,
your
sir.
assignment or in your test or exam, you need to have these slopes very correctly taken up. So with the scale and all, you have to draw very properly. Now we have reached to this value I3. Now what will be the next interval? What will be the next equation? So I4 will be I3 plus 1 by L times of minus 0.1 VDC times of T4, let us say. So can you tell what this value will be actually? What will be this value? Any guess? Understanding my point? It has to come back to 0 because it is a ripple. That's what I am emphasizing since the beginning. The initial and final values have to be 0. Getting my point?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So
Yes, sir.
this point will actually meet here. And again, next sub-cycle. Sub-cycle is half of the switching cycle. This is the sub-cycle, we also call it. So again, next sub-cycle, it will start from here. It may go like this or that, depending on what our error is coming. So then what is our peak-to-peak ripple now in this case? That is what we are interested, either peak-to-peak ripple or the current ripple RMS. So these are the things we can compute on basis of that, basis what we have got. So now what is our peak-to-peak ripple? That is simply the maximum value I2 minus the minimum value I1. Getting my point?
Yes, sir.
And IRMS is something more involved how you have done in your assignment. So that is how we compute the IRMS value for this ripple part. So this is only ripple RMS. This is not having any fundamental component. Don't confuse with that or don't mix with that. So ripple you may get 10 ampere for a 50 ampere system, ripple RMS value, fine. That is what the ripple content you have in your system. So THD can be very easily judged from there. So then peak to peak ripple could be one basis on which we can compare different PWM techniques. Now for different values, we can different values of VRN, we can have the ripple for IR. So this is nothing but IR ripple. Am I clear here?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now, these intervals, what we have written T1, T2, T3, T4, who is going to tell that? Who is going to decide that? Who is going to give the answer for that? Or how will you get the answer for that? Any suggestion? Any suggestion? How do we get that interval?
So it depends on the value
Dependent
of
on MR value.
modulating.
So we know the value of modulation index, we know the value of this thing. Now, can you tell? So this is where we need to go back to what we must have studied in our 10th standard, similar triangles. You see this is the same slope which is there, that this bigger triangle, and everything is just part of that. This is from 0 to TSW. This base value is known, and from -1 to +1 we know this value also, and individually also we know all these smaller triangles what are the values. Getting my point?
Yes.
If you
Yes, sir.
name it, let's say O, A, sorry, here B, then C, and then let us say different D, E, F. So this, and here also, let's say G, H, like that. So this OGH triangle is actually similar to all these smaller triangles. OAF or is similar to triangle OBF. Okay, it's repetition. E, this is. So OBE, and then this is similar to triangle OCD, isn't it? Is it not? Tell me.
Yes, sir.
Same.
So now these base values, let's say T1, can be computed as in terms of TSW by 2, which is the total length from 0 to this base value, and the ratio of the two heights. Now what is this height? This is 2. And what is this height? So this is, let's say, the difference. This is only 0.4. So 0.4 by 2. Getting? Is it clear or not?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now this difference is 1.2, so 1.2 by 2, and T3 is something like TSW 2 into, this is 1.4, so 1.4 by 2. And T4 is nothing but you do TSW by 2 minus T1 minus T2 minus T3. Now are we clear? These numbers are given now. T1, T2, T3, T4, all these numbers are known. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So this is how we can do exact current ripple analysis of sine triangle PWM or any carrier based PWM in this manner. So we need to know what is the ripple voltage applied on the system. Then we need to know these intervals which we can solve by the similar triangle method, and then we can get the exact location of these current peaks I1, I2, I3, and I4 is of course 0 because it is starting from 0. So whether peak to peak ripple or the RMS ripple or anything can be solved very easily. Am I clear?
Yes, sir.
So this is one very strong tool for doing the current ripple analysis. Analytically. This you are finding the expressions for different current ripple, or let's say current ripple in different regions of the waveform on analytical basis, and you can compare with your waveform what you captured practically whether this is matching or not. So this is another way to verify whether what you are doing in PWM is correct or not. And also you can have a comparison between two different PWMs or something like that. Am I clear?
Yes, sir.
Now the question comes, if we can get the current ripple for any or at any point of our fundamental current or fundamental waveform, then can we guess the point where we have worst current ripple? See, this is dependent on your VRN1, right? Whatever pole voltage you are applying, but the ripple, if you shift this value here to some another level, then everything will change, isn't it? Say something.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So, which means it is heavily dependent on our VRN1. So when this can be worst, so let me go back to our pole voltage. There the guesswork is easier. Let's say at any switching cycle, we are trying to realize this voltage level, and we are applying either this value or this value. This is how we are applying. Is it correct? Is it correct?
Yes, sir.
Now this is our voltage error during the positive cycle or positive pulse width, and this is the voltage error during the negative pulse width. Is it true?
Yes, sir.
So now can you guess a point where both these errors would be maximum, like the cumulative effect will be maximum? If you are either on the positive side, your positive error is less, but negative error is more. So then we are applying this pulse for longer time, this pulse for some lesser amount of time, and then we are getting our error. Now, if we are on the negative side, we are realizing some negative voltage, we will apply a small pulse on the positive side and a bigger pulse on the negative side. Sorry, yeah, on the negative side. Is it not true? So then our positive error will be more and negative error will be less. So somewhere we are balancing between the two, and this error is going to be maximum actually when we do not have any voltage requirement. Let us say at the zero crossing, our voltage is here, but still we are applying 50% of the time some positive voltage and we are applying 50% of the time some negative voltage. Is it not?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
So
sir.
which means here we have voltage error positive and voltage error negative both at maximum value. So our voltage error is maximum at zero crossing of the fundamental component. Getting my point? Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
So then what we can do, because we have the worst voltage error at the zero crossing, that is why we have worst current ripple at the zero crossing of the fundamental voltage, not at the fundamental current, but at the zero crossing of the fundamental voltage, we will have maximum current ripple. So analysis we can do sometime later, but the scenario I will just show how it looks like. Let's say this is our voltage waveform and we are running induction motor, let us say. So current would be lagging somewhere, let's say here it starts. So it may go like this. This is how the fundamental components would be, isn't it? Is it true?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Now,
sir.
Yes.
throughout this current, we will have some current ripple because of whatever voltage error we are creating in the system throughout this current. Now, this ripple, peak to peak ripple, would be changing throughout this waveform and it will be maximum at the zero crossing of the voltage. So let's say here, this is the first zero crossing. Here you will have maximum ripple like this. Then at this point you will have maximum ripple like this. Then at this point you will have maximum ripple like this. So this is the way you can judge whether your PWM is coming correct or not. So at every zero crossing of voltage, your peak to peak current ripple in the ripple in the current would be maximum. So it will be very distinctly seen when you see the waveform on oscilloscope or anywhere in the simulation also. This ripple would be very distinct from all the other ripple parts in the current waveform. And this is where we can tell that wherever this maximum ripple is occurring, this is the zero crossing of our fundamental voltage. Is it clear to all of you? Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So this is one way by which you can guess the power factor of this waveform. Power factor angle of this waveform, let's say phi. So this is where exactly the zero crossing would come. So we know if we have the current waveform on the oscilloscope, we know that voltage is having a zero crossing at this point, which means we are lagging the voltage by this number or this angle. So this is our power factor angle. So on the scope, we cannot see VRN1. We will see only VRN, so which will be a PWM voltage changing continuously. So how to guess the zero crossing of the fundamental? So either you have 50-50 this duty ratio of the PWM waveform, or you see the peak to peak current ripple, what is generated because of this. So these both will occur together. So this way we can judge what is the power factor angle for our current. Am I clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So let's stop then over here. And very important aspect of any pulse width modulation we have discussed here, how to do current ripple analysis for the system. So in this manner, we can do or analyze any PWM waveform, and then we can say whether we are doing justice to our system or not, whether our system is having a good current ripple or not. Now you change the value of VDC or L, this will also change the ripple on an average. Like throughout the waveform, this will change. If you have more VDC, it will have more current ripple. If you have lesser leakage, it will have more current ripple. Or if you reduce the switching frequency, that means TSW in total, if you reduce, which means all these intervals T1, T2, T3, T4, these will be reduced. So your current ripple will reduce. So this is how you can correlate with what you are doing. If you are in come down. If you are increasing DC bus voltage, your ripple should increase. If you are reducing the leakage inductance, your ripple should increase. So that is the correlation between all these quantities. And then we can see what is the worst current to current, peak to peak current ripple. And we can give the maximum number what we are going to have in the system. Is it clear?
Yes,
It's
sir.
clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any
Yes.
doubts, any questions up to this?